On March 25, 1911, a fire broke out on 2329 Washington Place in Manhattan. This fire started on the 9th floor in the Ash Building in the Triangle Waste Company. The Triangle factory was owned by Max Planck and Isaac Harris. During this factory fire, 146 of the 500 workers involved in the fire were killed. These 146 immigrant workers were almost all women, and at least half of them were teenagers as young as 14. This factory fire proved to be devastating and was known as one of the worst workplace accidents in New York. Workers desperately tried to escape from the flames. However, there are many obstacles in their way, preventing the scared women from successfully escaping a fiery death. The room that the workers were in was filled with long tables and working equipment. This caused the women to be slowed down in trying to escape. But even when they eventually got around the bulky equipment and tables, they were faced with even more difficulty when they tried to get down the stairs onto the street. Some of the girls tried to open the doors on the 9th floor and found that one of them was locked. The owners of the building, Blank and Harris, had locked the door because they wanted to prevent the women who were working from stealing any materials from the factory. Because of this locked door at the end of the stairwell, many women ended up being burned to death right in front of the locked door. However, the other door on the 9th floor was only open inward. This proved to be much less than satisfactory when huge crowds of girls trying to escape the building crowded in front of it. Because of the huge group of people who were all panicking, the door is very difficult to be opened. Some of the other girls tried to go down the elevator that the building had, but this also proved to be a futile attempt, for too many of the girls were squeezed inside the elevator and it fell down the shaft, killing all of them inside. The women who tried to escape from the fire escape were not any better off. It was much too narrow for everyone to exit out of, even if they had hours to do so. This fire escape led nowhere and bent under the weight of the many girls on it. Many workers ended up resorting to jumping out of the windows, for they would rather kill themselves than be burned alive inside of the building. When firefighters eventually came, the ladders that they used were too short to reach the 9th floor, where all the women and girls were trapped. On top of that, the water from the hoses could not reach the top floors. This fire was caused by the lack of safety precautions put in place in the factory. It could have easily been avoided if Blank and Harris had changed things slightly to make the factory safer. For example, there were no sprinklers inside of the building. This was probably tied to the two owners' shady past with the fires in their buildings. They had owned buildings in the past which all burned down. It is speculated that Blank and Harris torched their own workplaces in order to collect money on the large fire insurance policies that they had. So, the reason that there are no sprinklers or other fire safety precautions in the Triangle factory was in case the two wanted to burn down this workplace, they would be able to do it with little struggle. This plan they had obviously did not end up working out. However, the two were brought before a grand jury for manslaughter and ended up not being indicted. This outraged the public, who demanded that laws would be placed for fire safety precaution in factories. They protested for the government to take action and do something about the awful conditions of the factories. The public was so distraught that the city enacted laws to try and prevent something as devastating as this from happening ever again.
New Yorkers raised money to pay for burials, to support dependents left behind, or to replace the weekly cash envelopes Triangle workers had sent to their families in Europe. Survivors also hoped for some small measure of justice when Isaac Harris and Max Planck were brought up on charges of manslaughter, and were shattered when the two men were acquitted. The state failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the two men knew the exit door was locked at the time of the fire.
The result of this event occurred because of the progressive movement that was going on during this time. People demanded for better working conditions that were safer, and because of the Triangle factory fire, the public was able to see just how bad the conditions were inside of the factories. So, this factory fire helped lead to the labor reform that people had wanted for so long. Overall, the Triangle factory fire was a devastating event, but it helped to bring about change to the disgusting working conditions that factory workers faced. Not only were the working conditions unsanitary, but the workers were forced to work long hours for low wages in a dangerous environment. Plus, many of these factory workers were Italian and European Jewish immigrant women who had only just moved to America looking for a better life. The laws passed in the city to try and prevent an event like this from happening again would prove to be beneficial for factory workers and would be a step in the direction of getting factory workers the better conditions that people have been asking for years.